Hi folks, Tino here at the Celtic Exchange, and I'm joined this afternoon by former Category 1 official Des Roache. Des has set up the new Behind the Whistles podcast along with ex-referee Stephen Conroy, and we'll be doing bits and bobs with the guys back and forth. They've obviously got the expertise on the refereeing part of the game, and they'll give us their honest and impartial assessment of anything that comes up. They've just launched this weekend, and what a weekend to launch, Des. There's all sorts going on. From our point of view, we're obviously going to focus on the Celtic side of things, but what are you seeing in general just now in terms of the various calls, and I suppose I mean VAR specifically?
Thanks for welcoming us on, Tino. For me and Steve, I think VAR at this moment in time within Scottish football isn't doing what was promised to do. I think it's causing far more confusion. I think it's causing far more dismay among the players, the management, the fans. We were told that it was going to be the end of all errors. We were promised that they were going to get things right. We were going to make sure that offences were called correctly. And quite frankly, I think it's causing more confusion. It's causing more errors. And I just don't think it's working at all.
Yeah, we've said before, Des, that we think the only ones winning out of VAR is the media, the websites, the column inches that are being generated from the seriously controversial decisions. You use the word dismay, kind of sums up in a nutshell how I was feeling after those calls at Tynecastle yesterday. But players aren't getting the benefit, managers and coaches aren't. Fans, particularly fans in the stadium, Des, that the stadium experience is poor because you're left in the dark. You've no idea what's going on, and obviously people at home as well. There's no audio, there's no explanation, and it's killing everybody. And obviously we're frustrated from a Celtic point of view right now based on what happened at Tynecastle, but we done our post-match, and obviously emotions are high and stuff, but I genuinely try to sway away from they're out to get us, that we're being cheated. For me, it's more incompetence, because for all the bad calls you see Celtic getting, Arbroath are getting them, and Dundee United are getting them, and teams down south are getting them. But I think from Scotland specific, we've just not quite mastered the art of VAR, if there is such a thing. Tell you what we'll do is we'll cut to the chase in terms of the big calls for Celtic. So first of all, Don Robertson, he's given the Celtic penalty. Just from a quick point of view, do you agree with it? Do you think it was?
I don't think it was. No,
Soft?
I don't think it was. I know people say penalties are like boiled eggs. You get hard-boiled eggs and soft-boiled eggs, but it's still an egg. To me, that's not a penalty. It's just two players coming together. I don't know what Cochrane's meant to have done. No, I'd be lying here to see if I could justify giving that call. And I think any, not even right-minded Celtic fan, but any right-minded football fan can see that's not a penalty. Yeah. And VAR should have got involved there to say, Don, have a look.
Yeah, I suppose you can add that one to the list of errors. It doesn't get involved when it should, and it does get involved when it potentially shouldn't. But play on, says Des, for the first one. Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. I think I've probably used the term that it was soft, because there's very little contact. There's not a great deal Cochrane could do. And if the ref waves play on at that one, I don't think there's many complaints. But we get the penalty. And as we know, Adam Ida misses it. A lot of folk are getting caught up in the fact that, Ida's really cost us there. Look what happened after. Adam Ida can't control everything that happens after, but obviously there's a lot that's come beyond it. It's only a couple of minutes after, isn't it, where Yang gets penalised. So I'll give you my take first of all, Des. I think Yang is a bit naive to put his foot up so high. I don't doubt that for a second. I think also Cochrane's kind of leaned into, I'm not sure if he's being clever or whatever, but he knows there's a good chance he'll pick up a foul when he goes down, claiming that he's been caught. But for me, Don Robertson handled that situation well. He was pretty close to it. He sees it pretty clearly. He comes across. He deems it a yellow card. He deals with the situation, and we're all set to move on. You can definitely correct me if I'm wrong here. My thinking was that VAR was to only get involved if the refs made a clear and obvious error. And as I say, I think Don Robertson's seen it, given the yellow, and we move on. So tell me what you've seen from there.
So again, this is probably quite a contentious one. I think what Don's done in the initial instance is what he's felt, which is obviously what he's dealt with. However, I can understand why the fourth official, or sorry, VAR has got involved, because you can't really jump that high and put your foot 6 foot in the air on your tiptoes and make contact with somebody's head. No matter how light the contact is or how heavy the contact is, that's serious foul play. It's not reckless and dangerous, because reckless and dangerous means you've got some form of control in it. But when Yang's putting his foot that high up, then I'm sorry. While I don't necessarily agree with it, but under the laws of the game, I don't think the referee had any other option other than to change it to a red card. I don't think it was the worst challenge in the world, and I don't think Yang meant it in any way, shape, or form. But purely under the laws of the game, that's serious foul play when you are 6 foot in the air with your studs showing going towards somebody's face.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we're speaking to you, Des, because that's, your more educated interpretation of it. Celtic have appealed it. You might have seen it just in the last few minutes. So this is Monday afternoon. We're recording. Celtic have appealed it, and people are asking the question, what IFAB ruling? And all of a sudden, we're all IFAB experts, aren't we? I hadn't even heard of them not so long ago. But we're now all checking the rulings and all the clauses and different things. So what was your term? The serious foul play? Is that what that would go down as, in your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion, that'd be down to serious foul play. When you've got something that's reckless and dangerous, it's a yellow card, because you've got some degree of control in it. And say it's not the most pretty tackle in the world, but as I reiterated, if you've got your foot 6 feet in the air with your studs showing, get into someone's face, I'm sorry, but I can understand why the red card was given there.
I'll grudgingly accept your explanation on that one, Des. I'm just going to ask you just a kind of football question. So, referee's hat off for a second in terms of this one. You might have caught the late challenge by the young lad Macaulay Tate. He came off the bench for Hearts, and he's gone studs into Alistair Johnson's ankle. It was reckless. Johnson was kind of off balance, and Tate's just, in my opinion, to use the term, seen a chance to do him. He's just gone in, left the boot heavy, and it's a yellow card. And I think it is a yellow card. That I'm not convinced it was strong enough to merit a red. But I made the point yesterday, and this is why I'm just keen to hear your football opinion on it as such, that what Yang does, it's little contact, flick of the boot kind of thing, picks up the red, and then Macaulay Tate, with intent, goes in and over the ankle, could potentially break a guy's ankle, yellow card. I'm finding it hard to square off the balance of these things in my own head, and I know you can pick up any two incidents across any weekend in football, but I'm just going on what we've seen and what we witnessed there at Tynecastle. What's your take on the severity of punishment for those type of challenges?
It comes down to the referee's interpretation of how much control is in the challenge and what's the intent. That's basically what it comes down to. Don's obviously thought at that moment in time that Macaulay Tate has genuinely went for the ball. There will be, it's a physical contact sport, so there will be coming together. So Don at that moment in time must have thought that, okay, the young lads made a genuine attempt for the ball, he didn't get there, there's been contact. Alistair Johnson's obviously come off on the wrong side of it. John Beaton has obviously not deemed that necessary to get involved. So that can be the only interpretation that's came from it. If Don thought for any moment that there was malice or intent to cause damage to Alistair Johnson, then the severity of the punishment would be entirely different. So it's an opinion call, and that's what referees are paid for. They're paid to give an opinion.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? I think a lot of us thought VAR was going to be this magic solution that meant we just almost couldn't get these things wrong. But ultimately, whether it's the referee in the pitch or the ref in the VAR room, it still comes down to interpretation, subjectivity, opinion. That's the thing. It's not binary, these things. You can't put it into the computer and it says, oh, that's a foul, that's a red. It's still relying on somebody making a judgment call, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you just think about it. You're trying to control 22 highly athletic, energetic football players, run a bit of pitch, trying to do the best for their team. You can't control their emotions from one moment to the next. You don't know, so you've got to be objective at that moment in time, see what happens, and give your call at that moment in time. And that's why referees are like football players. the best football players make the best decisions and get the best things right the far majority of the time. The best referees are exactly the same. They make the best calls the vast majority of the time. There may be one or two that slip by, but what you're asking a referee to do there is give an objective call, subjective call, whatever you want to call it, and make it on that moment. I don't really remember a lot of cry out for it afterwards either.
For Macaulay Tate?
Yeah.
Yeah, just in my house, just here. No, I don't. I wasn't certainly at the time as well. I didn't think it deemed a red, but I just thought that's a horrible, nasty tackle. Yet he stays on, and Yang's is very little intent, and he doesn't. But yeah, it's just try to compare and contrast. Maybe it's apples and beach balls. I don't know. In terms of the two other big calls that have been made, so still in the first half, and first half was chock-a-block with all sorts of decisions for Don Robertson. We can skip by the offside call for Shanklin's goal that would have made it 2-0 after their penalty. I think just ultimately that's a binary decision. They draw the lines, it says you're off or you're on, and that said he was offside. And I think that's exactly what VAR should be doing. That's not an opinion-based decision, that's a fact-based decision. So it's the tiniest of margins, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately at the time for Celtic, but that one's rightfully chopped off. But the penalty comes around, and I'm watching it, Des, and I've not even known of anything to be concerned with until you realise that play has stopped and they've gone to a VAR check. I didn't see anybody, players, Don Robertson at the time, or even the crowd react to it. It's just, when we realise there's a VAR check going on. So we obviously see that there's a bit of a stramash in the box. The ball comes out the sky. It seems to hit Tomoki Iwata on the elbow as he's facing a different way. So again, IFAB experts all around, myself included, try to see what that ruling is. What's your interpretation of that one?
Dead easy. Dead easy. It's never a penalty kick. Never a penalty kick. There was actually one, I think it was last season, was it Bernaby, left back at Celtic at the time? Exactly the same. He's went up for the header, the ball has dropped, the ball has hit him, the Hearts player's challenging, there's two Celtic players going for it, a Hearts player going for it, the ball then drops, goes out of play for a throw-in. Not one person in the ground was looking for that decision to be made. Not one. Now, my big thing, and we've always said it, and I'll continue to say it, there's a difference from you hitting the ball and the ball hitting you. The ball hit the Celtic player there. The ball hit him. What can he do? He's jumping. He's looking forward. Now, unless I don't have a degree in laws of physics, but to jump, you've got to use your arms. To get off the ground, you've got to use your body. So what else can he do? The ball struck him. I think the handball rule at this moment in time is just absolutely preposterous. We've seen so many given, so many not given. It's ridiculous. It should just go down to is it deliberate and intentional? That should be the handball rule. Because, as I said to you earlier, there's 22 guys running a football park. The ball's going to hit you at some point. Let's be honest, that's going to happen. It's a contact sport. The ball's thrown about. But for that to be given as a penalty kick and you to be deemed punishable, then no. And listen, we've seen it all year, haven't we? Nobody agrees with the handball rule. Under current legislation, I can see why it was given. Do I agree with it? Absolutely not. 100% no. And I think that not one Hearts player would have complained if play had restarted with a throw-in.
Yeah, I think post-match, Stephen Naismith was saying it was harsh. Lauren Shanklin was saying it was harsh. And no less than Chris Boyd was saying it was harsh. So in my world,
there you go then.
that it most likely shouldn't have been. What do you think? What interpretation, Des, do you think John Beaton has applied there? I'm not up to date with the rule because it keeps chopping and changing, and there's tweaks and adjustments to it and all that kind of stuff. Deliberate, not deliberate. What do you think he's seen there? Has he seen that as something that's somehow gaining an advantage or disadvantaging his opponent? What would the interpretation be by the VAR ref?
I think John Beaton's just looked at it and saying, well, the ball struck his arm below the t-shirt line, and he's just went with the letter of the law. And what we've seen numerous times earlier in the year However, I think if you get a feel for the game and you understand the sport, nobody's given that.
Yeah, it's just that's the thing of everything that went on at Tynecastle. This is the one that I can't square off in my head, and even just in terms of the rules, I think there's a real need for clarity, and actually just taking it back to what used to be. It used to be quite a serious offence would have to be committed for a penalty to be given, and rightfully so. It's football. You'll have heard folk in the last 24 hours talking about it. Des football's a low-scoring game, so one goal can be crucial. It can be the goal that wins or loses your game, or whatever it might be. So to give a penalty, I think a ref or a VAR ref need to be absolutely sure, but it also needs to be, in my opinion, the rule needs to be that the defender needs to be doing something deliberate, or as you say, intentional, to prevent the opponent from scoring. If that's the case and you get caught as a defender, that's okay. You've tried to gain an advantage, it's not come off for you, and the opposition gets a penalty. If you're not even looking the same way, nobody in the planet can tell me that Tomoki Iwata meant to handball that. Therefore, how can he be punished? It just doesn't seem right. And what you might get moving forward is defending teams almost being scared to jump at corners, been scared to make any sort of tackle. Football was meant to be a contact sport back in the day, and I'm not harking back for those hammer thrower tackles of the 70s and 80s, but the game's changing dramatically, and there's very little you can do now in the box.
Well, to quote Steve, Steve Conroy, Steve says, if you are a clever football player now, all you need to do is get that ball in the penalty area and just blitter it off anyone and see what happens, because you're going to get a penalty if it hits their arm. There's no skill involved in that. I think the handball rule has really, really ruined the game at this moment in time. I've seen it often enough. As much as to Twitter was going on, I called Connor Goldson the best goalkeeper in Scotland last season. The amount of times that the ball was hitting him, the ball was hitting him. That wasn't called, but it really does need, the handball rule really doesn't tighten down. It has to be, and I think, shoot me down if I'm wrong, I think the vast majority of football supporters across the world would say it's got to be deliberate and intentional, because the ball can always hit you, and that doesn't make it a foul.
Yeah, and it's just, I go back to my point there that VAR is not improving anything. I'm all for changes to the game, but changes, not for changes' sake, changes that make genuine improvements to what players can do and what entertainment's on offer for fans. The other side of VAR is they're finding spurious reasons to chop off goals. And surely goals are the lifeblood of the game, Des. It's what we all go to see. So I just think there's too many changes being made to the detriment of the game, and it actually stunners you, to be honest with you. You're a football guy. I'd like to think I'm the same, and I could just really disappoint you at times moving forward, particularly when it goes against your team. Des, thanks for the really honest viewpoints as always. So yeah, I suppose you've come down on the side that the red probably was a red for Gang, and you've given your reasons for that, but the penalty, you can't understand why that's been given, and I'd have to wholeheartedly agree. So, Des, thanks for joining us here. Do you want to tell us a wee bit more about Behind the Whistles? Obviously, it's the new venture with yourself and Steve. You've just launched it this weekend, I believe. So, do you want to tell us a wee bit more about what you guys are doing there?
Yeah, so we'd also been involved in a podcast prior to this. Things have been a wee bit quiet, and it was always our intention that it got a lot of traction, and people were asking about it. We were getting messages from Australia, from America, asking, are we taking a longer winter break than the SPFL? So we decided that we would do something on our own. We're entirely independent. We are not aligned to any club. So we can give our own opinion. We still talk to the guys who are involved in refereeing, but it's really just to give the fans a voice, that we'll give our opinion. They can ask us. I'm on here talking to yourself. We'll talk to Celtic, Aberdeen, Arbroath, Falkirk. We'll talk to anyone. If someone has got a genuine question they want answered, they might not like our answer, they might not agree with our answer, but we're more than happy to get involved in dialogue, and just be involved in the wider world of football. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all love. We're all football fans. It just so happens that we weren't good enough to play at that level, but we got to a decent level in the middle. And as we say, our the other thing is we can give an opinion from behind the whistle, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to tuning into the various shows, and thanks for giving us your opinion this weekend. You mentioned that you're still in touch with some of the officials. If you do happen to speak to John Beaton, can you please ask him what's going on? Because it's really, really puzzling in this one. No, but listen, Des, I'd like to wish you and Steve all the best for everything moving forward. Where can folks check you out if they're looking to catch some of the shows?
So on Twitter, or X as it's called now, it's Behind TW Pod, and on YouTube it is Behind the Whistles, and I believe it's on Podbean as well. And you can get me on Twitter at Des Roache, and you can get Steve Conroy as well. So we won't hide away from anything. We're more than happy to answer any questions.
Great stuff. So thanks very much to Des Roache, former Category 1 whistler, for joining us here this afternoon. Des, best of luck with the podcast. We'll speak to you again very soon.
No problem at all. Thanks, Tino.